Hello everyone, today we are going through Nutanix questions for multi-cloud infrastructure. This is just a practice and this is my first time going through questions. I didn't have a chance to read it yet, so let's start. An administrator needs to install multiple Prism Central instances on a single Prism element management cluster. Which statement is valid? I should cover the answers. Installing multiple Prism Central instances on a single cluster isn't supported. Only one Prism Central instance can be registered to the Prism element cluster. After deploying the first Prism Central, the other instances can be set up for the marketplace, from the marketplace. It is possible to register an unregistered Prism element with the same Prism Central multiple times from the GUI. What is Prism Central Nutanix? Let's start from the basics. It's a centralized management platform used in Nutanix ecosystem. Single control dashboard. Prism Central lets you manage multiple clusters and resources from one place instead of logging into each. Key functions: centralized management. You can manage clusters, monitor and visibility, see performance, health, alerts, usage in real time, automation, automate tasks, reduce manual work, capacity planning. Predict when you will run out of storage CPU and plan ahead. Security governance. Role-based access control, audit logs, policy enforcement. Prism element manages one cluster and Central manages multiple clusters. So, the correct answer is D. It is possible to register an unregistered Prism element with the same Prism Central multiple times from the GUI. An administrator needs to enable marketplace. Let's see, what is a marketplace in Prism Central? Is the place where you can store, share, and quick deploy ready-to-use applications or virtual machine templates. Place when you can store, share, and quickly deploy ready-to-use applications. Internal app store for your infrastructure. Instead of building everything from scratch, you have templates. Okay. To enable marketplace before deploying Nutanix apps, which prerequisite must be met on the Prism element cluster hosting Prism Central to enable marketplace? Data services IP must be configured. So this is the correct answer. Must already be enabled. LASP stands for what? And the IP must be configured. Link aggregation control protocol. It lets you combine multiple physical network links into one logical. Okay, so data services IP must be configured. Let's see. YA. The marketplace in Nutanix Prism Central relies on network accessible services to deploy apps. For that to work, the cluster must have a data services IP, VIP configured. What the data service IP does, it's a virtual, so it's virtual IP address used by cluster services to handle NFS, SMB, ISCSI traffic, provide consistent access point for services, enable application deployment, workflow. ISCSI stands for Internet Small Computer System Interface. Okay, cool. We have 200 questions to go. So we have time. We have plenty of time. A virtual machine is protected by a protection policy, and the volume group is configured with CHOP authentication. What is CHOP authentication? CHOP authentication. An administrator rotates the virtual machine's password as part of the monthly routine. What action must the administrator perform to ensure the password is retained in the event of failover? CHOP is Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol. Is a secure authentication method used to verify a user or device without sending the password directly over the network. Server sends a challenge random value. Then client uses its secret password to create a hash response. Server compares it with its own calculation. If they match, access granted. The password itself is never transmitted. It's used in network authentication systems and ISCSI. Internet Service, what that was standing for? Internet Small Computer System Interface. And the correct answer to this question is D. Set the password in the VG recovery points. What is VG recovery points? Snapshot of volume group that you can use to restore data to an earlier state. A volume group in Nutanix is a set of block storage volumes used with things like databases or Internet SCSI connected servers. What are VG volume group points, recovery points? They are point-in-time snapshots of that volume group used for backup and recovery. Can be restored if data is lost, corrupted, or changed. It's just a snapshot. It's just a fancy, long, distracting name. Volume group recovery points. It's just a snapshot where you can roll back or use for backup recovery. Okay, next question. An administrator needs to temporarily allow an external host to mount a Nutanix storage container via NFS for a data migration. Which approach is recommended? Mount a Nutanix storage container via NFS and network file storage for a data migration. B. Allow a signal host with IP with 255.255.255 net mask. And let's ask why B? When exposing a Nutanix storage container over NFS, you should limit access as much as possible, especially for a temporary task like migration. So this is single host only. Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, yeah. Only the specific external host can mount the NFS shard, minimizes attack surface, reduces risk of unauthorized access, data exposure, misuse of container, tight controlled temporary permission. Storage over, you should limit access. Okay, next question. Which setting will ensure a specific storage container maintains a minimum amount of available storage, even if other containers in the same storage pool are consuming space? Amount of available storage. Reserve capacity logical. Why be reserved capacity logical? Heuristically reasoning. You want to guarantee space for one storage container even if others are consuming storage. Okay, makes sense. It sets aside storage space exclusively for that container. Other containers cannot use that reserved space. Next question. A company has recently purchased 5 new Nutanix clusters. The lab manager has been tasked with remotely deploying the Nutanix infrastructure in the most efficient way possible. Which tool would be best help to accomplish this task? Foundation Central. Why Foundation Central is the best choice for efficient as the most efficient way. You are not deploying one cluster, you are deploying 5. Single pane of glass to deploy multiple clusters. Remote deployment from a central location. Parallel provisioning. Deploy many clusters at once. No need to touch each site individually. Foundation Central. Okay, next question. An administrator is working to ensure a cluster's future resource needs in Prism Central and notices a red warning icon labeled PC under provision. Which specific condition in the environment most likely triggered this warning? And this will be B. The administrator is using more than 80% of the Prism Central instance's capacity. Tell me more about PC under provision. Okay, in Nutanix Prism Central, PC under provisioned is a warning that the Prism Central virtual machine doesn't have enough resources. Oh, it's like under provision. Okay, that makes sense. CPU, RAM, storage. Prism Central is managing too many clusters, but its size is too low. Bottleneck. It creates a bottleneck. High utilization of Prism Central resources. So the administrator is using more than 80% of the Prism Central instance's capacity. Next question. An administrator has a large group of virtual machines for the marketing team that all have the same RPO requirements of a snapshot every hour. A protection policy already exists with an hourly snapshot schedule. What is the easiest way to add this group of virtual machines to the protection policy? And this will be A, assign a category to marketing virtual machines, then add the category to the protection policy. So RPO is recovery point objective. Oh, okay. I didn't hear that for a long time. Correct answer, assign a category to marketing virtual machines, then add the category to the protection policy. In Prism Central, categories are used to group virtual machines dynamically. Okay, makes sense. Instead of managing virtual machines one by one, you tag all marketing virtual machines with a category, department marketing for example, then attach that category to the protection policy. Result, all current virtual machines are included. Any new marketing virtual machine is automatically protected. No manual updates needed. Assign a category to marketing virtual machine, then add the category to the protection policy. Then attach the category. Any new marketing virtual machines. Okay, so create the category on the marketing. You tag all marketing virtual machines with a category, and then you add the protection policy, so it's automatically protected. Makes sense. Recovery point objective. How much data you can afford to lose? Okay. An administrator must configure a virtual machine which would run a write-intensive application on a hybrid non-volatile memory plus SSD cluster. When setting virtual machine options, which action would give the best performance? D. Set flash mode at the VM level. Set flash mode. An administrator must configure a virtual machine. Setting options, which would be the best performance. Let's ask why flash mode, because this is not volatile mode would give the best. It would give the best performance because it forces that virtual machine to use flash non-volatile memory for both reads and writes, bypassing slower tiers. What flash mode does. In a hybrid cluster, HDD plus SSD, normally data may go to hard drive. After some time with flash mode, data stays on flash all the time. Consistency, low latency, and high input-output oh gosh, EOPS stands for HTTPS. Why that matters? Right, heavy workloads like databases need fast write acknowledgement, are sensitive to latency spikes. Flash mode ensures writes hit fast storage immediately, no delays from tearing to HDD, no performance drops under load. Normal SSD may tear to HDD. Variable. Flash mode, always SSD, non-volatile memory. So normal goes to SSD. Fast and consistent, and at normal mode is variable, so it's not fast. Without flash mode, writes may land on HDD, it's slower. With flash mode, all writes on non-volatile memory, much faster. Network segmentation, help traffic, not disk performance. Load balancing, virtual group helps distribution, not row speed. RF3 container improves resiliency, not performance. Input output operation per second, correct. Higher input output per second, faster storage performance. Hard disk drive HDD, and this is solid state drive. This is the flash memory, no moving parts, much faster, reliable. Uses spinning disk, mechanical arm, slower because of physical movement. Do people still use that HDD? Expensive, moving parts no, input output high, speed fast, reliability higher. Okay, next question. As part of a resource planning exercise, an administrator observes that a significant number of guest virtual machines are consistently using less than half of their allocated resources. Which virtual machine profile in Prism Central best categorizes these virtual machines? Observes that a significant number of guest virtual machines are consistently using less than half constrained or inactive? No, it's over provisioned. Why? If that would be over provision, it means they would use the resources to the maximum, right? No? Isn't that the opposite? If they are over provisioned, wouldn't they use max? The correct answer is D, max resources, not in infrastructure. Okay, what over provisioned actually means? You allocated more resources, yeah, than the virtual machine actually needs. Okay, so they have too much of the resource. So the virtual machine has, for example, 8 virtual CPU plus 16 gigabyte RAM, but consistently uses only 2 And 6, that's wasted capacity. Okay, makes sense. Virtual machines are consistently using less than half of their allocated resources. That's definition of over-provision. Makes sense. Too many resources, constrained, not enough, high usage, bottleneck, inactive, barely used it at all. Bully, consumes too many shared resources. 10 bedroom in the house, but you use only 2. Like rich people problem. You are over provisioned. That's wasting capacity. Whoever needs to hear that. Okay. A new naming convention policy for storage containers requires virtual machine placement to follow the updated naming rules. Which action can be performed to comply with the policy? A new naming convention policy for storage containers requires virtual machine placement. Follow the updated naming. I don't know. D? No, A. Perform live virtual disk migration. Perform live virtual disk migration. Wow. Why? A is correct. Perform live disk. To a different. Did they say that without downtime? To follow the updated naming rule convention. But they didn't ask without downtime. Moves only virtual machine disks from one storage container to another. The virtual machine stays powered, no interruption. Yeah, that's true. For storage changes without downtime. But they never asked about downtime. They never said downtime. Yes, virtual machine placement must follow updated naming rules. That means virtual machines are currently in the wrong storage. You need to move them to the correct containers. It's assumed best practice. They said it must follow the naming rules. There is really nothing about downtime. It is more about the naming rules. This is not about labels. It means must be placed in the correct storage container that follow the naming convention. Why renaming containers D is not correct? At first glance it feels right, correct. It's cosmetic, not functional. If you change the name, what actually fixes placement? A new naming convention storage container requires placement. This part leads you to the wrong answer. At least when you don't have the experience with Nutanix, like me. But that's why I'm studying. Why A is correct. Make virtual machine comply with new container naming structure. that requires relocating storage. What has the meaning to remove storage? Containers are organized with specific names that represent purpose. For example, production, dev, backup. The name meaning role policy, so what does virtual machine placement must follow naming rules mean? It means must be placed in the correct container. Database must be in production. Dev must be in dev container. Renaming a container doesn't move anything, doesn't fix, doesn't enforce rules. You must move. That's why leave virtual disk migration correct. Folders on your computer rule all finance files go to finance folder. Moves files into correct folder, moving files, virtual disk migration. Naming rules define where virtual machines should be placed, so compliance requires moving virtual machine storage to the correctly named containers, not just renaming them. Placement, movement. An administrator has been tasked with enabling LACP on an HV cluster. Is that oh god, it's not availability high virtual cluster. AHV stands for Acropolis hypervisor. An administrator has been tasked with enabling a link aggregation control protocol and Acropolis hypervisor cluster on an Acropolis hypervisor cluster in the exhibit. Which option is the best to select for bond type when completing the task? In the exhibit, which option is best for bond type? One adapter in the bond is active. Additional adapters act as backup until the active adapter fails. Okay, link aggregation must not be configured on the connected switch. Oh wow, I had that similar questions in my CCNA exam, and I don't remember that, but yeah, that was active something, active passive, something. I don't remember all the names, but there were like 8 different modes or more. Okay, why active with mock meaning is the right answer? The correct answer is active with MAC because of how Nutanix Acropolis hypervisor handles traffic distribution without requiring switch configuration. What you are trying to achieve: use multiple uplinks at the same time, no special configuration on the physical switch. Why active with MAC pinning works? Uses all NICs simultaneously. Active. Assigns each virtual machine's traffic to a specific uplink using its MAC address. MAC pinning distributes traffic automatically across links. Load balancing, no switching configuration needing, simple and efficient. The key phrase is without additional configuration of the physical switches. That eliminates LACP based option. So link aggregation control protocol leaves MAC pinning balance SLB as the best choice. SLB means active backup when lane open. LACP multiple lanes but needs coordination MAC pinning. Multiple lanes, cars auto assigned, no coordination needed. One line, interview ready. Oh, for interview. For Nutanix interview. Active with MAC pinning is correct because it enables load balancing across multiple uplinks without requiring switch side configuration. You get the job. Okay, source load balancing SLB. It means traffic is distributed across multiple network links based on the source virtual machine's MAC address. In Nutanix, Acropolis hypervisor, when you see balance, source load balancing, MAC pinning, each virtual machine is pinned to one uplink. Different virtual machines use different uplinks. Traffic is automatically spread across NICs. A single virtual machine uses one NIC. Multiple virtual machines uses multiple NICs. If you have one, two, three virtual machines, 3 NICs. No switch configuration needed. Simple and efficient. Good distribution. Okay. Next question. An administrator wants to adjust how often the platform checks for security drift without modifying controls that run at fixed intervals. Which setting should the administrator modify? D. The SCMA baseline enforcement behavior. Just how often the platform checks for security drift without modifying controls that run at fixed intervals. What is SCMA enforcement? Refers to enforcing security hardening rules defined by security configuration management automation on your Nutanix environment. A system that checks if your cluster follows security best practices, detects configuration drift, helps maintain compliance, internal policies. Not just checking, but automatically applying and maintaining the correct settings. So instead of, hey, this is wrong, audit, this is wrong, I will fix it or keep it fixed. Enforcement mode. SCMA applies secure configuration automatically, prevents unauthorized changes from sticking, keeps systems aligned with the baseline. Enforcement. Fixed intervals. So when they ask about fixed intervals, it means automatic sometimes it runs on a set schedule, like every 5 minutes. What automatic means happens without manual action. SCMA context schedule runs checks at fixed intervals. Enforcement How rules are applied without modifying controls that run at fixed intervals. Don't touch the schedule, change behavior, not timing. SCMA, a baseline enforcement behavior. Runs on schedule, happens without manual input, controls how rules are applied. So why not SCMA schedule? Is enough. If you change SCMA schedule, you are changing when checks run, timing every hour, and but the question says without modifying controls that run at fixed intervals. That explicitly means do not change the schedule. You want to control how the system behaves when drift is detected. SCMA enforcement behavior. SCMA schedule when checks happen. And this enforcement, what happens after check. Security rule. SSH password login must be disabled. Scenario check runs every 1 hour. Now you want not just detect but fix automatically. You change enforcement behavior, you do not change schedule. Okay. Next question. A company has recently purchased 5 new Nutanix clusters. The lab manager has been tasked with remotely deploying the Nutanix infrastructure in the most efficient way possible. Wasn't that question first? Which tool would be the best to accomplish this task? Foundational, central. I'm sure this question was already task with remotely deploying infrastructure in the most efficient possible way. Foundational, central. This is the same exactly question. Again, why foundation central? Because we don't have to change every machine, we change just one. Multiple, remote, and efficient, right? Deploys many clusters at once, works from a single central interface, supports remote sites, automates the process. Next question. An administrator has been tasked to remove a node from a Nutanix cluster running SQL virtual machine to help with hardware refresh. After the node removal started, the administrator received the following error: node UUID cannot be removed. Cluster needs at least 5 usable nodes. What action does the administrator need completed to remove the node? C. Add the replacement node to the cluster first and then remove the original node. Add the replacement node. Okay. Why the replacement is first needed to remove the node? what the error really means. Cluster needs at least 5 usable nodes. Oh, okay, I didn't pay attention actually. That it said that the cluster cannot safely operate without fewer nodes given its current configuration, RF, data layout, fault tolerance. Why you must add the replacement node first. When you remove a node, data must be replicated. To maintain protection, the cluster must still meet minimum node requirements. If you remove first, you drop below safe limits. Data protection is at risk. Cool. Replication factor is RF. Resiliency rules. Nutanix distributed storage fabric. These require a minimum number of nodes to keep copies of data. And we know that is add the replacement node to the cluster first and then remove the original node because it says at least 5 usable nodes. So answer C. An administrator needs to configure 2 virtual machines to enable application level high availability for a database. Which setting is needed? B. Configure the volume group in shared mode. Volume group in shared mode. To enable application level high availability for a database. Which setting is needed? Configure the volume group in shared mode. Why volume group in shared mode is the correct answer? It is the correct answer because in Nutanix volume group, normally only one virtual machine can attach the disk, and shared mode, multiple virtual machines can attach the same volume simultaneously. And we need to configure 2. So we need shared mode. Okay, makes sense. An administrator is deploying a new cluster with dense storage. Each node will have 10 terabytes of storage. How many logical cores will be assigned to each CVM? CVM stands for, of course, virtual machine, central virtual machine, or controller virtual machine. Okay. Controller virtual machine is a special virtual machine in Nutanix that runs all storage and cluster services. Okay. 100 terabyte. How many logical cores will be assigned? Why 12 logical cores will be assigned to that? Sizing rules. When a node has a very large storage, like 100 terabyte per node, the controller virtual machine needs more CPU to handle more disks capacity, more input-output operations, metadata management, replication, compression, deduplication, more storage, more work for controller virtual machine, more CPU cores required, Nutanix sizing logic, storage capacity, disk. For dense storage nodes, 100 terabyte, standard allocation 12. Why not lower? Those are used for smaller, less dense nodes. Small warehouse, 2 workers. Huge warehouse, need more workers. Why not 14? How did they calculate that? Let's see. Why is 12 per node? Sizing tier. A 12 virtual CPU logical cores. 6 is small node. 8 is medium. 12 is large. 14 is a not standard tier. So this is more of a standard. The closest valid standard size is 12. Why not 14? Not part of standard controller virtual machine sizing profiles. Next question. An administrator manages a 3-node Agropolis hypervisor cluster and needs to optimize overall cluster consumption. Starting from a recording server workload that stores MP4 videos on dedicated local virtual disks. Specifications: compression, post-process 60 minutes, capacity, dedupe disabled, erasure coding disabled. Which configuration would best improve cluster performance? Create a storage policy to disable compression. Can I copy this? Yeah. I'm glad they didn't block that. What is the dupe? Create a solid storage policy to disable compression is correct. The scenario video recording MP4 workload is a classic case of sequential already compressed data. MP4 files are already compressed. Trying to compress them again gives almost no space savings, but it still consumes CPU and I/O cycles. What happens if compression is on? Extra CPU work, engine runs, extra latency, no real storage. Why disabling compression helps? Removes unnecessary processing, reduces latency, improves throughput for write. Best optimization for this type of data. Erasure coding. Create a storage policy to disable compression, removes unnecessary processing, reduces latency, improves throughput. Okay. The duplication saves space because data is identical. When the dupe works well, virtual desktop interface, many similar desktops, operating system images, repetitive data. When the dupe does not help, videos, encrypted data, random unique data. That's a good point. When the duplication, so the duplication is the dupe. It doesn't even sound similar. It should be the dupe without E. Okay. Next question. An administrator wants to enable secure boot for a guest virtual machine. Which coding would prevent the administrator from completing this task? CVM. No. The answer C. 3. Virtual machine is configured with IDE disks. An administrator wants to enable secure boot for a guest virtual machine. Which condition would prevent the administrator from completing this task? Would prevent. Virtual machine is configured with IDE disks. Why? Core answer. Virtual machine is configured with IDE disks. Secure boot requires UEFI plus modern disk bus SATA CSI, not IDE. Secure boot works only with UEFI firmware. IDE is a legacy disk controller. UEFI secure boot does not support IDE disks, so if the virtual machine uses IDE, you cannot enable secure boot. What about option D? Formatting error. Okay. UEFI versus IDE or let's see. So UEFI firmware, how a virtual machine boots, IDE, this controller types, how the virtual machine talks to its disks. IDE legacy. I remember that. IDE stands for. It's not the same what. Oh yes, so it's not the same as integrated developer something. Integrated drive electronics. And the second IDE. Oops, it's supposed to be IDE. Integrate. And developer and developer environment, right? Integrated. Oh yes, development environment, integrated development environment in software, but in hardware it is integrated drive electronics. So this would prevent that because from completing this task, because secure boot doesn't work with integrated drive electronics. Okay, next question. A company has purchased Nutanix hardware for multiple remote branch offices. The IT team at headquarters needs to image and deploy all clusters remotely from a central location, and administrator deploys Foundation Central from the Prism Central Marketplace. What capability does Foundation Central provide in this scenario? Automated, let's see, answer D. Single pane of glass to create remote cluster without individual node configuration. First of all, what is single pane of glass? And YD. a single interface dashboard. Oh, okay. Where you can see and control everything. One UI, user interface. One login. Manage multiple systems from one place instead of logging into 5 different clusters. You use one console to deploy and manage all of them. Why the correct answer is D. From the Prism Central Marketplace, what capability does Foundation Central provide in this scenario? Okay, makes sense. So, single pane of glass to create remote clusters without individual node configuration. This is what Foundation Central provides from the Prism Central Marketplace, and Marketplace is the place where you have baselines, template virtual machine baselines for ready to deploy for new virtual machines. Okay. An administrator attempts to provision a virtual machine using remote storage, but the target container does not appear in the drop-down list. What is the most likely explanation? B. The storage container type is not set as sure. If this is not set to sure, it means you cannot see it. In Nutanix, a container can be configured to be accessible externally for things like NFS, ISC, SI. When it is set to sure, the container is exposed for external access. It becomes visible, usable for remote mounting. If it's not set to sure, it is internal only, used only by local cluster, virtual machines. It will not appear in external provisioning dropdowns. An administrator supports multiple Agropolis hypervisor clusters. Under Prism Central and uses intelligent operations playbooks for remediation. The organization recently standardized alert policies, but the alert policy name and IDs change between environments due to automated deployments and periodic updates. The requirement is to trigger a remediation playbook for any alert that matches a defined performance pattern. For example, impact type and severity plus a keyword pattern, regardless of which specific alert policy generated it, while avoiding unrelated non-performance alerts. Which playbook trigger best meets the requirement? Webhook trigger configured so an external system calls the playbook endpoint only when performance incidents are detected. Alright, let's see. A webhook is when another system sends a request HTTP call to Prism Central to trigger something. Instead of Prism Central watching everything itself, an external system decides when to trigger the playbook. In this question, you need trigger playbook only for specific performance patterns, not tied to a specific alert ID name. Avoid unrelated alerts. Why webhook trigger works best. You can use an external system like monitoring SIEM to detect complex conditions, match patterns, severity, keywords, behavior, then send a webhook, triggers playbook. Flexible, works across changing alert IDs, filters noise better. How it works, step by step. External system monitors environment, detects performance issue based on logic you define, sends webhook API call to Prism Central, playbook runs automatically. And for example, playbook can scale resources, notify the team. Why not the other triggers? Next question. After scaling out Prism Central to improve resiliency, which additional configuration should an administrator complete? D. Set a virtual machine to virtual machine anti-affinity rules between Prism Central to improve resiliency. So anti-affinity means they must be not close to each other. Means yes, keep things apart. Ensures that specific virtual machines do not run on the same host node. High availability. It improves high availability, prevents single point of failure, improve resiliency. Virtual machine 1 database primary, and virtual machine 2 database backup. With anti-affinity, they will be placed on a different physical hosts, which assure better availability and resiliency. Only one. So if one host fails, only one virtual machine is affected, not two. So the risk is limited, mitigated. An administrator is running Nutanix cluster check NCC in the Prism element web console. The administrator is not able to collect the logs. What could be causing this? D. Nutanix cannot collect the logs while running NC. Nutanix cluster. Why? Why not? When you run Nutanix cluster check, the system is already performing diagnostics using system resources, generating its own checks logs. During this process, log bundle collection is restricted to avoid resource contention, incomplete or inconsistent logs, conflicts between processes. You must wait for NCC to finish, then collect logs. Cluster check, okay. A cluster of 6 Acropolis hypervisor nodes has a memory runway of only 12 days, while the current cluster memory usage shows 60% utilization. What could be the reason? B. The cluster memory usage is continuously increasing during the last 21 days. Why 21 if it's running for 12 days? I don't understand this. Let's ask ChatGPT. Why 21 if it's running 12 days? Is that a mistake? Oh, it has a memory runway of only 12 days, while the current cluster memory usage shows 60 utilization. Even though the usage is only 60 now, if memory usage has been steadily increasing over the last 21 days, Prism Central predicts at this growth rate, you will hit 100% in 12 days. Why 21 days versus 12? This is the key confusion. 21 days historical data window used for trend analysis. Whoa, I would never guess that. 12 days forecast into the future. Think past 21 days used to calculate trend. Future 12 days prediction. At this rate, you will hit 100% in 12 days. Alright. What is the minimum number of nodes required for a storage container with replication factor 2 and erasure coding? Why 4 nodes are required for replication factor 2. Because you need enough nodes to keep data safe and build and rebuild if something fails. Two things are happening together. Replication factor. Each piece of data has 2 copies. Copies must be on different nodes. Minimum for replication factor 2 to 3 nodes, so you can still have 2 copies if one node fails. Okay. Erasure coding EC. Data is split into chunks. Data plus parity needs multiple nodes to distribute those chunks. Also needs spare capacity to rebuild after a failure. Why 4 nodes? The key idea with factor. Because 3, so then one more, right? With only 3 nodes, you barely satisfy RF2. If one node fails, system is at risk. Not enough nodes left to safely rebuild EC. Erasure code data. With 4, data parity can be spread properly. If one node fails, system still has enough nodes, can rebuild data safely, maintains protection. This meets both. Replication factor RF2 requirements and erasure coding requirements. Important files, 2 copies. Puzzle piece, EC, distributed piece. So with 3, lose 1, too tight, too risky. Okay, so the rule is it always needs one additional. So if you have 5, you will need 6. If you have 7, you will need 8. If you have here 3, you need 1 extra, so it's 4. That's my understanding. An administrator is creating a setting profile in Prism Central to standardize NTP configuration across multiple clusters. The organization security policy requires that all NTP communication must be authenticated. The administrator adds an NTP server to the profile, but does not see the key ID and key hex fields. What is the most likely cause? Authenticated NTP requires the cluster to run iOS 7.0 or later. All right. Oh, network time protocol. I forgot about this shortcut. It's 123, the protocol number. UDP port 123. It keeps all systems clock in sync across a network. Very important for logs, security events, authentication, troubleshooting. AOS 7.0, the core Nutanix OS running on the cluster, manages storage services and platforms features. New versions, new features. Why A is correct. You don't see key ID and key hex fields. Those fields are used for authenticated NTP secure sync. Authenticated NTPs only supported by AOS Acropolis operating system. The cluster is likely running older AOS. Okay, next question. An administrator is tasked with deploying a new virtual machine with secure boot enabled for UEFI boot configuration. Which bus type should the administrator use to deploy virt input-output ISO? C, SATA. Why SATA? For a virtual machine with UEFI and secure boot, the operating system and firmware expect a modern UEFI-compatible disk optical bus. The virtual input-output ISO used to install drivers is attached like CD-DVD. In Nutanix Acropolis hypervisor, the recommended compatible bus for UEFI secure boot is SATA. Works with UEFI, supported with secure boot, recognized reliably during operating system install. Key rule: boot media, think SATA. Simple explanation: UEFI needs modern. SATA is used because it is compatible with UEFI and secure boot. Let's remind what SATA stands for. It is Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. let's do the one more question, and the rest we are going to do later. Several test virtual machines are causing performance issues on a cluster during peak usage. An administrator needs to apply storage quality of service to these virtual machines to permit average workloads while preventing performance spikes. The administrator has collected the following average workload profiles for the test virtual machines. 10 virtual machines, 10, 30, 45, 120 KB, pronounce KB. KB is kilobyte, KI is KB. Binary used in computing. Block size 700, 900, for 45 is 800, for 120 is 200. The administrator creates a storage policy named Prevent Spike for Test and applies it to a category containing all 4 virtual machines with the following quality of service settings, quality metrics, input/output per second, throttled value 1000. Later, the user of virtual machine number 3 with 45 KB and 800 input/output per second reports performance degradation even during normal workloads. The user of virtual machine 1 and 2 and 4 do not report any throttling during average usage. What is the minimum throttled input/output per second value the administrator must set in the policy to accommodate the average load of virtual machine 3? YB. How did they calculated that? Was being asked. Yes, this you are setting a throttle limit. Max allowed input/output per second. The limit must be above average, otherwise the virtual machine will get throttled even during normal use. Why not just pick 800? Workloads fluctuate. There are bursts above average. You need a buffer, headroom. The hidden role exam logic, Nutanix quality of service questions typically expect average input/output per second, 40% buffer. But those numbers are so close. So do the math. Yeah, sure. In my memory, like. Of course I would know this, yeah. I would have to sit with it a little bit to calculate that. Closest answer, step 5. Why others are wrong? Too close. Higher than needed, not minimal. Minimum value that accommodates the workload you want, not too low, not too high, just enough headroom, 40%. Okay, so it needs to be like 100% plus 40%. I mean, so it needs to be 800 plus 40% of headroom of this 800, right? Okay. Well, now I know. Now I could calculate that, I believe. Okay, that's enough for today. We will go back to it probably tomorrow.